Welcome into Top Shelf, presented by Enterprise. Big trips, sudden detours, or last-minute plans, whatever it is, we're here for it. And today's the day we get to talk about the Olympics. We haven't done this yet on Top Shelf, but
I'm pumped.
Yeah, we've been saving it a little bit, but today's the day we're starting off our Olympic talk, and we're starting, of course, with Canada. I mean, we're Canadian, so it makes sense. But the team that just won the Four Nations, this is the best country in hockey. Still, we still get to say that until something that we don't want to see happens. But yeah, we're about 3 months out, 85 days, and this is our first look at predicting the Canadian men's Olympic roster. We'll do this again, maybe a month or even a little bit closer to the tournament, all in one big episode. But for right now, for the people back home, we're going to do Canada, we're going to do USA, and I think we're going to touch on Sweden and Finland too, and the rest of the field. But we're starting with the big one, Canada's Olympic roster projection. Now, what I'll do is I'll start with, we have our locks, right? So there's the 6 guys that Canada's already come out and said are on the team. Connor McDavid, Braden Point, Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Sam Reinhart, Cale Makar.
Pretty good group.
Yeah, I was going to say, any you don't have any problems with that? You don't think that McDavid guy deserves a shot?
Yeah, right. The one guy people have talked about is Braden Point, but he's been so good for so long. Yeah. I'm not worried about his slower start at all.
I agree. He caught my eye for sure when he was just locked on the team. But he's going to be on this team. I think it's just
there's no way he's not on the team.
No, he was great at the Four Nations too.
He's an awesome player. Him being in that group of players is certainly a little bit eye-opening, but good for Braden Point. I mean, we know John Cooper's going to have his guys there. And then the other guys that we have penciled in as our own locks. So these are important to note as well. We've got Brandon Hagel. We've got Mitch Marner. We all have Brad Marchand. And then on the back end, we've got Devon Toews, Josh Morrissey, Thomas Harley, Shea Theodore. And then in net, Jordan Binnington. Sorry, only one goalie. So we're gonna get into the goalie. We're gonna get into all of them. But we've got kind of a lineup laid out here. We just have to plug and fill in some holes with the guys that we think are gonna be here. But again, you guys feel good about all those guys? Is there any of those guys where you're like, no, that guy's not a lock?
Feels pretty good about the entire group there, right? Like, there's a reason we have them as locks. There's reasons for all those guys. Like, I could hear arguments for one or two guys, but really, when we're also projecting what Team Canada's going to pick, feels like all these guys are pretty sure to be on the roster.
That's something I should have noted off top is, as much as we'd like to sit here and just put together, like, the most fun Team Canada roster, in our opinion, these are who we think the management and the coaches are going to pick. So we'll get into it, but there might be a guy or two here where you're like, I'd love to see that guy. We don't know if the coaches are going to put him on the team. So without further ado, let's start on the left wing on the third line is where we're beginning, all the way down on the third line. Who do you have there, Josh? First hole to fill in.
I got Macklin Celebrini. I think everyone can agree to that Celebrini has played his way onto the team. I mean, amazing rookie year. He's taken a huge leap in his sophomore year. And I think what separates Celebrini from another young phenom in Canada like Connor Bedard is that Celebrini's 200-foot game is so well-rounded. He's such a great skater, too. And I think being a left shot helps because Canada has an abundance of right wingers or right-handed centers who would be best at right wing. So I think he's a perfect fit on that third line left wing.
I love it. I mean, this is a guy who, not even at the start of last year, like rookie season, like you never could have seen this coming. We knew he was good, but we didn't know he was this good. And I think he's, I wouldn't say he's a shoo-in yet just because of the age, but
feels pretty close to it.
The play of Macklin Celebrini, throw age out the window. Like he's playing like a grizzled vet out there, two-way guy. My one question was, just because of the depth that Canada has at center, do you think he has the capabilities to be effective as a winger?
Absolutely. Like I he's a dog as well.
Yeah.
Like his competitiveness is one of the things that I think has made him so good early on in his career, particularly like in puck battles and in his defensive game as well. So that's one of the reasons why I think he is a strong fit on the wing as well with some other guys down the middle. Of course, he could play down the middle, but there's so many center options that the young guy's probably going to shift to the wing.
I think the flexibility is nice to have, too. Like,
sure.
He starts as a winger, but, hey, say there's an injury or one of the other centers isn't as performing, and you could slide him back to the middle, no problem.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I also think, like, you need, like, if you're going to have Macklin Celebrini on the team, you want to get him minutes, and if he's going to be on the third line, he's probably going to be a winger, but that's fine because he's going to be on the ice. And that's all we care about out there. Okay, so our first player off the board, Macklin Celebrini, third line left wing is where we've got him. onto the center of the third line. Who are you going with here, Kyle?
Yeah, for me, it's Nick Suzuki, and it's not particularly close. Like, you look at the way that he's played basically since Four Nations, and he's like top 5 in NHL scoring since then with like a plus 26 rating. He's had elite 5-on-5 results. He's been driving this fantastic top line for the Habs. Everything he does in terms of a two-way game as well, in addition to bringing the offense and his playmaking, screams ideal third-line center on this kind of Team Canada. And then the question mark for him, of course, has been the Hockey Canada stuff in terms of he hasn't necessarily gone to as many World Championships as Hockey Canada maybe would have liked. How much is that going to be held against him? I think his play since the Four Nations has completely put that aside. You can't have a player like him off the roster, and I think he's the ideal kind of fit that you want as a third-line center on this kind of roster, a guy that can penalty kill, can chip in on the power play if you need him to, or just play at 5-on-5 and be a damn good player there.
Yeah.
I think he has to be on this roster in a prominent role as well.
I think he's probably the biggest lock of anyone who wasn't at Four Nations.
Yes.
Like, his game is so
Over
well-rounded,
Celebrini
like
for
you
you?
said. Probably, yeah. I think
Okay.
just
I
the
would say so.
experience, and I really look at last year down the stretch, how he really willed the Habs to the playoffs. Like, that, to me, speaks like a guy who's not afraid of the moment, not afraid of the spotlight, can elevate in those big moments, and I think Hockey Canada will take notice.
I think it goes to show the step he's taken to as a player, because I think we all probably thought he could be on that team last year, or I personally was like, yes, Suzuki should be on Four Nations team. He wasn't, but there was a sliver, like there was a bit of doubt in my head. I was like, okay, that's not outrageous to not have him there. Whereas this year, if he's off the Olympic team, it would be a disgrace in my eyes.
You could justify it at the Four Nations. You can't justify it anymore.
Exactly. The leap he's took in the last year to be a third line center, like I feel so good about that.
Right?
For our team, like that's Nick Suzuki, third line center. So that fills out that third line. So we've got. There's no line one here because you have McDavid on one.
There might be a line one. I don't know.
Well, McKinnon.
But that's fair.
I would 1A, 1B, but that's worth noting too. Obviously, we've got the Lightning guys on either side of McDavid is how we've got in, and then Crosby, McKinnon, Reinhart as the second line. So the third line, we have now filled out Celebrini, Suzuki, Marner. What do you guys think of that? I like
love that
a
group.
lot.
And
I
that's
like
a
that
group
lot.
that can eat some defensive zone starts too.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's like you have two guys who are in Selke conversations a lot of the time in Marner and Suzuki, and then a guy who
A future
is
Selke
mature
winner.
beyond
Yeah.
his years in
Seriously.
Celebrini. You can a lot of guys who could score. Marner's great playmaker. I think
That's,
that could be a really fun line.
That's a really fun line. Okay, so moving on to our fourth line, we've got two more holes to fill here. First of all, we've got Brad Marchand on the left wing side. Again, I don't think there's any chance they leave him off the team. Whether or not he's actually getting big minutes or getting some minutes on the fourth line versus being an extra forward, we'll have to see. I think he deserves it. Especially, it's not like they're giving him this position because he's been on teams before and he's an older guy.
He's been elite for Florida.
He's been so good this
Yeah.
year. He's been carrying the Florida Panthers this year, which is insane to see. Down the middle on the fourth line, I've got Mark Scheifele. I think this is a guy who wasn't on Four Nations also. He's kind of been in and out of conversations for quite some time now, like when it comes to this stage, and he's always been on the outside looking in, and he's been so good as an NHL player the last 5+ years. Like he's been such a great elite center for the Winnipeg Jets. I think it's finally time that he gets his shine. My big concern here, and why I've got him on the team, but why I think there's a bit of hesitation is if you're gonna have a fourth line center, is it going to be a guy that's just a pure goal scorer mostly? I know he's taken a step towards being a better defensive player this year with Adam Lowry not being there for the Jets as much. So he's had to fill in and kill some penalties and just be more sound defensively. But again, the fourth line, I know this isn't a typical fourth line like you'd see like a checking line in the NHL. But Mark Scheifele being on that fourth line and still being more of a premier goal scorer, how do you guys feel about that?
I have some reservations about it, to be perfectly honest. I think he's more of a fit as an extra guy that you might bring in case of injury.
Yeah.
I would look to a couple of different guys, for my opinion, instead of Mark Scheifele. But you mentioned the goal scoring, and that is such a huge factor for him because we've seen it in tight games where you need a goal scorer to break through. is it better to have a guy like Mark Scheifele at the bottom of your lineup who can get you one of those goals in 10 to 12 minutes versus a defensive checker who maybe keeps things close but isn't going to get you that game-winning goal? I can see the argument to have him. I personally wouldn't, but I can totally see the argument to have him on here, and I could see why Hockey Canada would want to bring him as well.
Yeah.
I'm also iffy on it, but again, I can see he's done everything in his control to play his way onto the team. So in that sense, I think he's earned it. And I kind of maybe compare it to in 2014 for the Sochi Olympics. I remember Canada took Matt Duchene for the fourth line. People were like, is this guy like a fourth line fit? And I remember he had a great tournament, and maybe Scheifele could be this year's version of that.
That's a good comp.
I do think that as much as it's like Canada's so top heavy, especially their forwards, like there's so much offense, I don't think that means, okay, bring some like checkers and bring some guys who are going to play a little bit differently. You could never have too much offense, really. It comes in turn with like you need some defense. So I think he should be on this team. Just it's almost like he's been so good for so long and they haven't given him the credit he deserves. I think he gets there. I don't know if he's fourth line center. I don't know where he's going to be. I think he's there. And then fourth line right winger. Who do you have for there, Josh?
I think it's got to be Mark Stone, pending health. If he's healthy,
Yes.
I mean, he's got to be there. He's such a good defensive player. Even though he's a really slow skater, it hasn't stopped him his whole career. I thought he was pretty solid in the Four Nations, especially when they moved him down the lineup a bit. I think that's ideally where he needs to be. And I mean, if you want to insulate Scheifele, who better do it with Marchand and Mark Stone,
Yeah,
two
seriously.
veteran, savvy, amazing defensive players. I think Stone, he's out right now. We don't know exactly when he's going to be back, but assuming he's back before December 31st when the rosters have to be submitted and he looks okay, I think he's got to be there.
Is the pace like a concern at all for you? Like the Olympics are going to be even faster than Four Nations because of some of the rule changes for IIHF. Is that a concern at all?
Theoretically, yes, but man, Stone has overcome that his whole career. He's just so smart. He's one of the best positional players in the game, and I think he deserves to at least be there. Hey, maybe if the pace looks a little too fast, you can sub him in for someone else. That's the great thing about the Olympics rosters, having two extra forwards rather than Four Nations where it was just one. So, yeah, I think he deserves to be there.
Yeah, I do like the fit of him on a fourth line like this as well, right? Where he is a bit more of a defensive guy who has the playmaking as well to go along with the Scheifele and a Marchand. Like, if you're going to bring a Scheifele as a fourth line role, I think having him with wingers like this is probably the way to go about it.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think like I understand obviously the standpoint of like, oh, you know, Mark Stone on Olympic ice, that could be trouble, but again, he's a premier NHL player and he's done so for how long now?
Skating
Like,
isn't everything, right?
no, exactly. It's like if skating was a problem with Mark Stone, I don't think he'd be where he is today. So I'm comfortable having there if he's healthy, of course. We get to our extra forwards. Two of them, like Josh alluded to, allowed in the Olympics this year. Who do you have as the first guy? Not off, but the first guy off the four lines.
Yeah, and it's a guy that I would probably have in the starting lineup as well, and that's Seth Jarvis. He's had a bit of a cooler streak here after a torrid start, and that's maybe reason why we have him as an extra forward instead of in the starting lineup. But this guy's an absolute dog. And then you combine that with his goal scoring and his playmaking and his speed. There's a reason why he was on the Four Nations roster. And of course, he was like this fourth line extra guy. And it's very easy to go into this next Olympic cycle and be like, okay, let's make a bunch of changes. Who's a guy that we can take off? Seth Jarvis, sure. But there's a reason they had him on that roster. He's one of the young guys coming through here. And he's a guy that is so versatile, he can play anywhere in this lineup. I could see him playing on the first line as a winger with Connor McDavid. I could see him on a fourth line instead of like a Mark Stone in the lineup that we have here. He can play anywhere in this lineup. He can play on the penalty kill. He can score you some goals. He can play with some passion. He can bring some energy to the locker room as well. I just think everything that he brings to the table, he checks the boxes of what you want as a guy that can be a guy that sits in the press box or can play in the lineup or can play in the top six or can play in the bottom six, can play on the penalty kill. Like, he can do all of these things. And he's a guy that will be on a Team Canada for years to come as well. I think there's a lot of reasons to have Seth Jarvis on this roster, and he's easily on my roster.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, with his versatility, like if you look in Carolina, sometimes he's, driving those lines with Aho, and then sometimes he's on a shutdown line with Jordan Stahl. He kills penalties. Like, he can just do everything. And I think he has that, like, personality where he's okay with taking a lesser role. Like, he doesn't have an
Yeah.
ego. He's really laid back kind of guy. He's got great interviews. Like, he's
the
hilarious.
best. He's
So
the best.
I think he's a perfect fit.
Yeah, I've compared him to being a young Brad Marchand before, and the way that we're kind of talking about him now, he kind of he's like an unpolished Mitch Marner. He can
Okay.
do everything, maybe he doesn't have
a good comp.
the hands and the capabilities as much on offense, but the versatility, like, you can't deny it. Like, it's awesome, and I do agree. I think in a format like this, having a guy like Seth Jarvis who can just get up and down the ice and can do everything that you need to, and his ego's not too big. He's not going to ask for more minutes or whatever. Perfect guy to have as an extra forward. The other guy I've got kind of falls into a similar vein. It's Sam Bennett. He was there last year, playoff MVP. I know he's been pretty bad this year. He got the new deal, and he's been pretty bad. We said it on the show before. What did you expect out of Sam Bennett? Like, it only makes more sense that his regular season is going to be even slower, and he's going to pick it back up in the playoffs. But this is a similar vein to Seth Jarvis, where it's like they brought these guys on the team last year for a reason. I think they bring them right back. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And Bennett and Jarvis, in particular, are two guys who are scrappy, who can throw the body around, like exactly what you don't have, like everything that you don't exactly have from Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon and stuff. These guys will bring to the table the little tiny things that those guys somehow don't have, just like the checking and the grittiness is what we get out of Jarvis, and that's what we get out of Sam Bennett. I know that there's probably some gripes with Sam Bennett being here, being like, oh, he's just been bad this year, but I don't think it's worth it. And I do think, like, they've kind of alluded to, he's almost a lock, right?
It seems that way, and I was kind of skeptical about him making the Four Nations team last year, and then he has a great tournament and proved me wrong, so I don't think I could argue against him on this team.
Yeah, I personally would lean against having him here, but we're projecting what Hockey Canada is going to do as well. Right. And the Four Nations, the playoff run, all of it, there are too many reasons for him to be on this roster. And I'm not offended if he's the 14th forward or gets in as the fourth line center. Like, if you're looking for a fourth line that can play 8 minutes and bring a jolt in, like, the second period, that's the kind of guy that you would want in that kind of role.
Yeah, I can just, like, see it already. It's like, I don't know, they drop one to the Swedes or something, and they're like, they roll out their Game 3 lineup against, like, a Latvia or something, and they're like, Sam Bennett's in on the fourth line. He's going to go out there. He's going to rough it up. Something like that's coming for sure.
What do you got against Latvia?
I don't know.
Jeez.
That was my first.
Memories of 2014.
Chris Godlewski's. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. All right, so we have our forward group picked out here. I feel good about it. Now, some guys off the list. We're going to talk at the very end of this about one guy each that we think should be in there over somebody else, but I'll just get these names out there before we get to the defenseman. No Connor Bedard. No Anthony Cirelli, who's on the team last year. No Travis Konechny, who was on the team last year. The two forwards who aren't here. John Tavares, Bo Horvat, Wyatt Johnson, Tom Wilson, Zach Hyman. Who else do we have here? Nugent Hopkins, Carter Verhaeghe, Robert Thomas. So I think a lot of these guys are definitely in a
Team Canada B is looking pretty good, though.
Yeah, seriously. I would like to see how good the B team could do, but all of those guys we don't have on the team right now. Is there anyone who's not the guy that you're going to talk about at the end of this show that you still feel a little bit iffy about? Like, you could see a Zach Hyman getting in here because he's Connor McDavid's teammate, or who else? Like the Connor McDavid we talked about.
The Zach Hyman one is interesting just because he hasn't played yet this year, right?
Yeah.
So if he had 15 goals or something like that right now, we'd be talking about a very different story and probably have him at that first line left wing spot. So if he's able to ramp up quickly here and get the offense going, maybe that conversation changes. But for me, I'm fairly comfortable with the group we have off here. Connor Bedard is a guy I would like to get in here, but it's a bit trickier to find kind of the roster space for him.
Yeah, my thing with Hyman is if he wasn't making the Four Nations last year, I don't see how he makes the Olympic team this year after missing all that time. So I'm comfortable leaving him off.
It's a good point. The only thing I would argue is, like, Olympic stage is when we get the Chris Kunitzes of the world, where like there's no international event that's not the Olympics where we got to see that. But that's my only. Every time I think, oh, Zach Hyman deserves a spot, that's just what I think.
Hey, Chris Kunitz has got that gold medal.
Chris Kunitz in the Olympics, man. Okay, on to the back end. So I'll go over it again. We have the first line locked as Taze McCarr. There's 0% chance that that's not the case. Yeah. Josh Morrissey's on the left side of our second pairing. Thomas Harley, on the third pairing, and then Shea Theodore at the bottom there. I think he could definitely move up offside if he needs to.
Yeah.
But again, it's not exactly about where they are; it's about who they are. So the first hole that we have to fill here for you, Josh, second line pairing, right side, who do you got?
I got Colton Parayko, and this is a guy for me who should be pretty much a near lock.
Yeah.
And it's mostly because he brings something to the blue line that no one else brings. He's massive. He's great in front of the net. Is he going to make a perfect outlet pass every time? Okay, maybe not. But that's why you put him with an elite puck mover like Josh Morrissey. And I thought they really complemented each other well at the Four Nations. Parayko's going to be on the number one penalty kill. He's a guy the coaches are going to love throwing out there in defensive draws. I think he's as close to a lock as there is of the guys we didn't say were exact locks.
Yeah. He's unique in this defense pool, right? Where he is that guy who's huge, who has that reach. And when you think about the Olympic style and tighter checking in terms of the penalties that are being called and stuff, when you have that reach to defend on the rush and you have that ability to defend in front of the net, that's going to matter in a tournament like this and going up against Team USA. So even though the Blues stuff is a bit of a question mark in terms of his play there, I still think he's a very strong fit in a Team Canada setting as well.
Even the last I checked, too, like his defensive metrics have been outstanding this year, which is why he's brought to the table for that defensive play. And yeah, I think he's just the perfect partner for Morrissey too.
Yeah.
And you know, Canada, like being a right shot helps too. I know it gets overblown a lot, but it's easier playing that right side, especially we saw how fast the Four Nations was.
Yeah.
Olympics might even be a notch faster. So playing on your offside is a little harder at this level. So I think it's very important to have a right-handed shot like Parayko there.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah, I think we'll get to the rest of these guys, but I have no problem kind of leaning into the guys who can just shut it down a lot more than the guys who can go out there and score, to be honest, with what you've got on offense. And we saw it last year, and it worked. So we've got Colton Parayko paired with Josh Morrissey. And then this third pairing, we've got Thomas Harley on one side. Who you got on the other?
Yeah, Drew Doughty here. He's a guy that there's a lot of reasons why to bring him. And I think the injury concern is starting to become a factor here in terms of whether he should or shouldn't be on the roster. But when he's healthy, he's still a guy that eats some of the biggest minutes in the NHL. He's posted very good 5-on-5 results early this season with the Kings, and he played at the Four Nations as well. So clearly he's a guy that Hockey Canada wants to bring in. Of course, he was an injury replacement there, and because he was injured in the first place. But if he's healthy, there's just nobody else like him that they can bring here because of the personality, because of the Olympic experience. And that's the big part, right? Like you have Crosby up front, but you don't have anyone else really on the back end that you can lean on for that Olympic experience. He was there in 2010. He was there in 2014. He's a guy that you can lean on as that third pairing guy or even as the extra defender to just kind of give some wisdom to the guys that are there for the first time, or to be a guy that is on the ice and actually giving you some good 5-on-5 minutes. The injury stuff, again, is a bit of a concern for me, but if he's available and healthy, I don't really see a way that Hockey Canada, in terms of the way that they like to pick these rosters, and in terms of the value that he brings in terms of the leadership element and the experience that he has, I don't really see a way that he's left off this roster if he's available.
I totally agree. Doughty's just such a gamer.
Yeah.
Like there's no game that's too big for him. He's always going to meet the moment, and yeah, I think he's pretty much a lock as long as he's healthy in time.
Yes. Again, too, if team like would he be a surefire lock just like based on talent? Maybe not. Maybe Matthew Schaefer gives you a little bit more of a pop.
Yeah, there's more of a debate if he doesn't have the experience element for some other guys, but when his 5-on-5 results so far this season have been as strong as they are, and then you compare to other guys, are there other players that might be marginally better? Yes, and maybe there's an argument that margin is important to bring. But as a third pairing or extra guy, I think the value you're getting out of the leadership side of things is too important to pass on.
I think knowing that he's not going to be making crucial mistakes like, say, an Evan Bouchard might in those spots is something the coaching staff would want.
And again, it's Canada. Like we're emulating the coaches and managers here. Drew Doughty, I agree for sure on there. He's kind of like he gets the Brad Marchand treatment of the back end. So you got to have a guy there that's been there before. He's the perfect guy to have. The last guy that I'm responsible with filling in here, probably the 8th defenseman on the list, I would say. The options you got. Mackenzie Weegar, you got Evan Bouchard, you got Matthew Schaefer, like Vince Dunn. There's plenty of guys. Noah Dobson. I'm just running it right back. I'm going Travis Sanheim. I think last year was super eye-opening for a lot of people who don't watch hockey too closely to be like, who is that guy playing defense for us? And he was awesome. He was great in the Four Nations. He did exactly what they brought him there to do, just shut guys down and be as good of a defensive defenseman as you can be. and I don't see any reason to not bring him back. I think Canada's defensive play last year, again, going in, we weren't sure of it because it was a lot of guys who are just there to play defense. They're not there to play. We had Josh Morrissey and we had Cale Makar, and aside from that, you don't have anyone you look at that's like the Team USA's Quinn Hughes and Adam Fox and stuff, facilitators on offense. And they were excellent. So I once again have Travis Sanheim. He's had another awesome start to the year with Philadelphia. Yeah, I understand the argument with maybe, again, Matthew Schaefer in terms of skill. I wouldn't disagree that Matthew Schaefer on the offensive side has been much better than Travis Sanheim, but that's not what we want the last defenseman on the team to be out there doing. We want them to shut it down when they need to. I've got Travis Sanheim. You guys agree with that pick? You feel okay about it?
I do, yeah. He's just super steady, almost like the left-handed version of Parayko a little bit. Yeah. And I think he can contribute a lot of ways. If he's dressed as the seventh defenseman, he can be on the penalty kill a lot. He can come in for D-zone draws. He doesn't have to play a lot of minutes, and he can just be super steady and know exactly what you're going to get. And I do like with our 7th and 8th defenseman here in Sanheim and Theodore, both those guys are left-handed shots, but they've played the offside a lot. Gives you a lot of versatility. If injuries strike, you can move things around however you like. I think that's a really strong defense core.
My concern with bringing somebody like Sanheim as that last defender is if one of your higher-end guys goes down,
that's a good point.
What are you bringing into the lineup? And all of a sudden, your ceiling comes down a bit. I think he's a great fit as that extra guy if you need to replace one of your kind of extra or complementary guys like a Parayko or a Doughty in the lineup. But if it's a Harley, a puck mover that goes down, if it's a Morrissey, if, God forbid, a Cale Makar, I think that's where more concerns come in. I would personally go a different route, somebody with a higher ceiling. But I totally get the argument for having Travis Sanheim here.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I have a feeling I know what angle you're going to take there. Again, we'll get to that at the end with our one guy out. Forward and defenseman lines have been built out, fellas. All we have left is goaltending. We have one guy locked in. Just Jordan Binnington is the only guy we think's on this team. Last year we had Aiden Hill, Sam Montembeault. Maybe they're here, but we don't think they're locks. That's for sure. And I think I feel okay about Sam Montembeault not being locked. We're going to start with you, Josh. Who was your first goalie on this team behind Binnington?
I got Logan Thompson, and this is the funnest position to debate because it's so wide open. Things can change with one bad start. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, I do. Logan Thompson has been Canada's best goalie statistically for over a year. Dating back to last season, he probably should have been at Four Nations. Maybe he got hot a little too late, but now he's the firmly trenched in number one starter in Washington, and he's been even better this year. If he is not there, I don't know. Maybe something's wrong because he's played his way onto this team more than any goalie in Canada.
Well, so what's the story with Logan Thompson?
Yeah, so
somebody hates him in Canada.
The history there is Logan Thompson requested a trade out of Vegas, and Bruce Cassidy is on the coaching staff. So it's more or less hearsay. We don't really know, but it seems like there's something there at least. And maybe the dynamic is different if Logan Thompson's there and Aiden Hill isn't there because that was what the duo was in Vegas. And again, we don't really know everything that happened there. But certainly if Logan Thompson isn't on this roster, just statistically speaking, like you mentioned there's going to be some significant questions asked. And I think there's going to have to be some very honest answers because statistically, especially compared to what Jordan Binnington's been this year, who can't stop a beach ball right now, but has the lock because of his play at Four Nations. Some serious questions have to be asked of the decision-making and also the behind-the-scenes stuff. But certainly, statistically, he needs to be there.
Yeah, if a little bit of beef with an assistant coach gets in the way of Canada bringing its best goalie statistically, then that's a problem.
I agree. I completely agree. It's time to put pride to the side there, Mr. Cassidy. Last but not least here, the final guy on our team.
I don't want to talk goalies here. You can make that last pick.
No, thank you. Here because I'll get the filth on my hands here to talk about him. But so Jordan Binnington, I always think if Jordan Binnington didn't do what he did last Four Nations, which he was stellar, obviously, this would be a much bigger talking point about why is this guy not even being talked about. Darcy Kemper finished third in Vezina voting last year. Canada is so concerned about needing a guy in between the pipes, and they have technically the third best goalie in the league from last season. So I think it's finally time that this guy gets a little bit more credit and a little bit more love. And I think that they throw him a bone here. And he's the third goaltender, sure, whatever. But he's a guy who's sound. He's a sound goaltender, and he's been so good for the Kings for so long now. The transition from Jonathan Quick there might have been it might have got a little hairy, but them going from Quick to a guy like Kemper, they're just two goalies who every single night, he's probably going to let in like 2 goals, 3 goals max. Like their defense has been so good, and it all starts with him. And I just think he deserves at least a shot. It's weird having a guy he's not like a young guy who they're bringing kind of to just get his feet wet a little bit with the international play. Like he's a very seasoned player now in the NHL. So him kind of being the third stringer in that regard, I think might be a little bit awkward, where it's like at least Sam Montembeault you can get behind in the fact that maybe we want to develop him a bit and get him into the system. But I just think it's kind of like similar to the pitch I made with Scheifele. I think he's done enough over the span of a few years to get him here.
Yeah, I think Kemper being like the vet, he's got the Stanley Cup experience.
Yeah.
He's an older guy too, so maybe he's okay just, being along for the ride.
It feels
basically.
like a safe option. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
super safe.
Not a guy that's necessarily going to win you a game, but it feels like a goaltender that might not completely cost you a
And
game.
with the way Jordan Binnington can spike and
Oh,
drop,
he's one of those two, that's for sure.
I could totally see again in my metaphorical world here where Canada drops one. Was it to Sweden? I said, and then they go out and play Latvia. Maybe you put Sam Bennett in the lineup and you throw Darcy Kemper in between the pipes and get a full reset here on the team. So there we have it. We have the full Team Canada roster prediction 3 months out. I'm interested to see when we come back and do this again what changes, if anything. I feel really good about this, and I feel good about the fact that we picked this to the best degree, with the brains of the managers and the coaching staff. Like that part I feel pretty safe about, maybe aside from Mark Scheifele, I guess, or maybe Sam Bennett. Like there's a couple guys here who could definitely be question marks. The big thing is they did 4 Nations last year. They're doing the Olympics this year. That bond between the players and the coaching staff, it's only a year removed. Do you expect John Cooper to really just be like, Anthony Cirelli, you're off the team? Do you expect guys who are close with guys who they just picked last year to not be there? That's what I'm a little bit like. You're gonna have to make some enemies here, probably picking this team if you're some of the guys back there. If you want a Celebrini on the team or a Nick Suzuki, So with the roster being fully laid out, we're going to get to the last segment here. Odd Man Out, presented by Enterprise. We've named all of our guys, but is there one guy who, if it comes down to it, you will vouch for and fight for to get on this team? Who do you have that being, and who do you have coming out? We'll start with you, Josh.
Yeah, my guy is someone you actually just briefly mentioned, and that's Anthony Cirelli. I think he'd be the perfect fit as that fourth-line center. He's fast, he's tenacious, he's great defensively. He'll buy into that fourth-line role like he did at 4 Nations. John Cooper has so much trust with him. I think Anthony Cirelli deserves to be on this team. He's played in big moments. And I've got Sam Bennett coming out. I'm a little torn between him and Mark Scheifele coming out, but I think if I had to pick it, I'd have Cirelli in as the fourth-line center, then Scheifele in as an extra forward.
Yeah, like I said, it's got to be awkward if he's not there. Just for the whole dynamic, you get your other 2 Lightning guys there, but Anthony Cirelli suddenly he's not good enough. I don't hate that at all, especially with just him being there last year.
There's never been an issue with a Tampa Bay Lightning player being left off an Olympic.
No,
roster,
never.
Right? Yeah, that's never been a thing.
That's a good point.
That's a good
okay, we got Anthony Cirelli in for Sam Bennett. Who do you have, Kyle?
So I talked about before how I want somebody higher ceiling as my final defenseman in than Travis Sanheim in case of an injury or anything like that. For me, Matthew Schaefer is an absolute rock star. You look at what this kid is doing, barely old enough to play in the NHL, and he's leading the NHL in defenseman goals. He's a near point per game. He's playing well over 22 minutes a game with good defensive metrics as well. His mix of elite skating and just this unbelievable play at such a young age, I want him on this roster to get that experience at a young age, but also because if he gets into the lineup, I think he can perform the way that he's been early on the season. I look back to 2010 and the Olympics that they brought Drew Doughty in his second year as a 20-year-old, maybe a bit of a riskier decision. And now we're talking about Drew Doughty. He has to be on this roster because of his Olympic experience, right? And Matthew Schaefer, he's a lot younger than that. He's barely 18 years old. But the way he's played, the way he's driven play, and his skating, I think that's the big factor for me. I'm perfectly fine having him as this extra guy who's perfectly fine to sit in the press box with all the other guys, but also to step into the lineup and maybe play with this youthful ignorance as well in these big spots. I think Matthew Schaefer should be here based off of his play this season. I think he's been absolutely one of the best defensemen in the NHL.
And so would you have him in over Travis Sanheim?
Yes, Travis Sanheim is the guy I would have out. I just want a higher ceiling guy as my last defenseman in.
Yeah. No,
I know it's apples and oranges, but I remember in 06 when they didn't take rookie Sidney Crosby, and that team obviously was terrible in Italy. So, and they clearly regretted it. So I wonder if they don't take Schaefer, and we could be looking back at this in a few years and be like, they didn't take Matthew Schaefer. Are they out of their minds? So I think it would be more than justified to have him on there as the 8th defenseman.
Yeah, well, there's another guy we'll get to, but that I'm feeling a little bit the same about. But just quickly on Schaefer, like I don't know where this where the guys picking this team heads are at, because I think personally Schaefer makes too much sense. But again, when we put this together, they feel kind of just old fashioned. Okay, well, let's roll Travis Sanheim out
For
there.
me,
we'll wait on the kid.
He's the biggest wild card just because the stance on him has changed so much in the past couple of months.
Yeah.
Like going into training camp, it was like, is he going to make the Islanders? And now it's, is he going to make Team Canada? Like that's a huge leap to make. And there's a reason why there's some hesitancy there. But based on the play on the ice, I think he's more than deserving.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. My last guy in is Tom Wilson. There's been some speculation about should he have been there last year? I was okay with him not being there last year, but I think I couldn't. I know that the play style in the Olympics is different. I know it's a much tighter whistle, but I remember watching that first round game against the States where we kind of got dummied. And the only thing I was thinking is, man, I wish we had Tom Wilson out there on the ice. Just a guy who can rough it up. I think he's, competent enough to tone it down if he has to and avoid taking some costly penalties. Again, in the Olympics, it's called differently. But just a guy that brings something that really nobody else on this bunch of forwards has. I think that Tom Wilson absolutely could be on this team and could be a difference maker in the non-scoring department. I know I said for Mark Scheifele, you can never have too much offense. I'm kind of going against that a little bit and just saying but it's the perfect kind of experimental last guy to have on the roster. So I think that Tom Wilson should for sure be here. Excuse me. And yeah, that's how I feel. Again, I don't know what the body checking is exactly going to look like out there, because we haven't seen NHL players play Olympic hockey in 11 years, 12. It's gonna be 12
it'll be 12 years.
So maybe you know what, those refs reffing back then probably aren't reffing right now. I would hope not.
I would like you to watch the World Junior games based off of some things that Team Canada's done. But who do you have coming off the roster for Tom Wilson?
I think if I bring Tom Wilson in, I probably would end up taking Sam Bennett off. I don't think Sam Bennett needs to be there. I know I picked Sam Bennett to be there, and I think that they'll have Sam Bennett there, but personally, I would have Tom Wilson there. He brings a little bit of more of an edge than Sam Bennett with a little bit less offense.
I do love the idea of Tom Wilson. I just personally didn't know who I could take off because they're so deep at right wing too.
It's true.
I love the idea though of him being that 13th forward and only playing a few minutes if necessary, but in those few minutes, he is forechecking like crazy and absolutely running a D through the boards and terrifying someone.
That's
and
what you might need.
Just puts that element of fear in a defenseman's
to
mind,
match up
I think
with
that's huge.
To match up with Matthew and Brady Tkachuk, there's nobody that really could do it last year. We had guys try to, but nobody has the edge on this Canadian team and on the team that we put together. I don't think anyone does. I think Tom Wilson's the one guy that you could bring in. Again, there's not going to be fighting in the Olympics. I sure hope not. But just his aura, I'll say too. Tom Wilson aura needs to be on the team.
Yeah, I like Tom Wilson here. My concern is that he runs an Italian third defenseman and
takes a dumb penalty
for 15 IHL.
Yeah, no, you're probably not wrong. But yeah, man, this was a fun experiment. This is all the time we have for this episode. But we split up instead of doing them all at once and making a super long episode. We're gonna split it all up. So we're gonna have Team USA next week, and then we're gonna figure out kind of who we want to talk about after that, with the Swedes, with the Finns, with some other undecided teams just yet. And just before we get out here too, something I definitely have to shout out. Last week we lost an all-time beat writer, Larry Brooks, NY Post. He deserves. I need to give him his flowers here just because of the John Tortorella. That stuff's so awesome. There's no guy who really could go tooth and nail and fight and take players' egos completely out of the picture and just report on hockey like that guy did. Bob McKenzie gave him some really, really nice words too. So I just had to get that out there because all-time hockey guy, and we got to pay our respect for him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Brooksy. Like, it's all-time stuff.
Seriously.
And like you mentioned, one of the best beat writers ever in terms of covering a team fair, but with the proper criticism as well, not putting kid gloves on. One of the best to ever do it.
Yeah, I think his fearlessness as a reporter is something every young journalist can take.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm glad we got to give him his flowers. But again, that's all the time we have. This has been Top Shelf presented by Enterprise. We'll see you guys next week.